Hello guys, welcome to the third lecture. In this lecture, we'll be talking about the model for network security, and we have previously seen the information, its purpose, information security, OSI security architecture, and we have gone through the security attacks, mechanism and the services. Based on the discussions that we had in the previous two videos, I'll be discussing the security model today. And that model somehow looks like this, that there are two entities that will be communicating the data, that is Bob and Alice, and there I'm assuming is an intruder who could be a person, or intruder could be a software as well, a machine, right? And trusted third party, I think this should not be new to you, because we have in case of repudiation talked about that we are assuming a trusted third party that helps us in exchanging of the information and keeps track of the information and help us achieve the non-repudiation. So this is how the complete scenario of the network looks like. So Bob and Alice wants to communicate, intruder is trying to read the information, and trusted third party will provide certain kind of services that we'll see in a short bit. So I'm assuming that there is a channel from which the information would be passing that Bob's want to send to the Alice. So this is my information channel, right? Now this information channel may be secure, may not be secure. So if Bob is trying to send any plain text P, so this message P passes from this channel and goes to Alice. If the plain text that we want to send is not converted or transformed into unintelligible text, then this could be easily read by the intruder, as we have seen in case of snooping, right? So what our goal is first to transform the information, and for transforming the information, now it is required for us that we perform certain operations, and these operations will be transforming the data. Now these are algorithms, maybe encryption or decryption algorithm. So they will be performing certain operations over here. So your plain text will be passing to the algorithms, and this will be fed in with some secret information which helps in transforming the information, and as an output from this you will get a ciphertext, and then this ciphertext is the secure message that would be passing through the channel. Now when intruder is listening to the channel, the intruder will not be able to understand the message. So when it comes out of the channel, you have got a ciphertext. This ciphertext is supposed to pass through certain transformation to get the plain text back. So the output of this is going to be the plain text P, and then this will be delivered to the Alice. So these are the basic operations that will be taking place. Now these sections are dealing with the, here it is encryption algorithm, and here it should be the decryption algorithm. Now these decryption and encryption algorithm will be preserving our information that we are passing, but these encryption algorithms may not be required in all the services. In certain services where confidentiality is one of the keys, you have to have these algorithms. Another thing that you should keep in mind is that it is not that only one algorithm can work. There could be two algorithms that is further transforming the data into C dash and then moving on through the channel, right? But if you have got two encryptions, then there should be two decryptions as well, right? So C dash would be received in here, and then the C dash will be moving on to the C, and then again there will be a transformation and plain text would be generated, right? So it could have a set of algorithms acting, and there could be more than one transformation that are taking place. The secret information that I've mentioned over here means that these transformations are taking place with respect to certain secretive keys. Why is these secretive keys required? Because there is a principle called as Kirchhoff's principle, which says that these algorithms are known to everybody, because you as a student, if there are 60 students in this class and everybody is developing a security project, might be using the same algorithms, but using the same algorithms does not mean that the plain text that is getting as an input to that algorithm will be producing the same ciphertext, right? And the difference between this mapping of plain text to ciphertext depends upon the secret information, because everybody would be assuming a different secretive information. So that pretty much is the key. So based on the key, the algorithms transforms a constant text into different ciphertexts, right? So this is important, the key is important. Now the another thing that is important is that the key that is used in order to transform the plain text over here, if it is k, the same key would be required for decrypting as well. If you are using the same key, so let me represent it with the subscript s. So this subscript s is like that. Now ks is your secret key, and this now becomes the part of symmetric key cryptography. But if you are using two different keys, a key like private key over here, and then you need a public key to decrypt the algorithm. If such a kind of combination is taking place where you have got a private key and a public key, then it is public key crypto system, which is asymmetric, because two different keys are required for encryption and decryption. Now what is required over here is, to keep things simple, let's just talk about a secretive key, that is ks, that the same key is used for encryption and decryption. In such a scenario, now it is required that the both parties who are communicating should know ks, and this intruder should not know ks, right? Because if intruder knows the ks, algorithms are well known to everyone. Intruder can be able to convert your ciphertext into the plain text, which you do not want. So ks has to be transmitted securely. So see, there are two important things over here. You need a security related transformation on the information to be sent, and you also need to share the secret information for those transformations to take place, and that too securely. So for that you have got a trusted third party. This trusted third party somehow enables you to transmit the keys to Bob and Alice, so that they know how to encrypt and decrypt the information that is being transmitted between the two. So few things that you have to keep in mind is that you need to have the algorithms to perform those transformations. You need to have these secretive information or keys, and you should know how to exchange them and how to create these keys. So generation of the secret information is another aspect that is important over here. Third is to develop methods for the distribution and sharing of the secret information, that what mechanisms would be employed by the trusted third party to share the secretive keys, how the security of those keys are implemented. That is the third thing that we would like to answer in this course. And then the fourth one is the specify the protocol to be used by both the parties, so that a standard is achieved in transmitting the information, right? So all these four aspects would be covered up in different units. One thing that this diagram does not represent right now is that what if the intruder has got an access to the medium. If intruder has got an access to the medium, now this intruder can send the information to the information system or any computer towards the end. Now this intruder could be a hacker, this intruder could be a virus, that is software, or a Trojan. We'll discuss all this later on, or a bug which is deliberately sent through the access medium into the information system. And once this bug has reached over here, or once a hacker has got access to the information system, it can pretty much compromise it, get the confidential data out of it. So first of all, try to understand that in the previous scenario we have talked about the network security, that how the message is moving from one network to another network through some access medium and it is secured. In this we are talking about that intruder is sending the information to the information system in such a way that he is trying to hack it, he is trying to get the information out of it, he is trying to modify that system, right? And we do not want it to have an access to it. So if we place a strict policy that nobody can have an access to the information system, so this means that the legitimate users who should be allowed to have an access to the information system will not be getting the access to the information system. So what do we do in this place is that instead of having a strict policy over there, we will have a guard function in place. Now this guard function does what? It checks the kind of data that is traveling and it provides the security. Fine. Now, in very simple terms, it could be understood that this is somehow acting as a firewall, because in firewall you have got a facility of creating the policy of what kind of data will it be accessing. So, it can create certain policies, right. It could be a software that is checking for some malicious information, and it is restricting the data flow into the information system. Again, there are two categories to it. First of all, you do not want people to have access to it. People should not be able to send the viruses and trojans into the system. So it somehow tells you with respect to a policy that I can receive the data from such and such sources, I can receive the data of certain kind only, and beyond that it is not recommended, or identify that a malicious software has been, or a piece of code has been transmitted. So it checks them, it stops them, it only allows the authentic correct data to pass on. Second of all, if the entry has taken place, if the virus has got an access to the information system or the system over there, then you should be able to track it down, and you should be able to monitor the activities that it is performing and end it there itself, right. So in the first case, you can have like firewalls, you can have some password based login procedures to make sure that the authorized person is getting the information, first of all. Second of all, audit also that you are monitoring what kind of an activity that person is doing. And this audit has to be a continuous process, because once you are given an access into the system, you could be a disgruntled employee. You are not happy with the company, and therefore you want to make its information public. Therefore, a constant audit has to take place. A constant monitoring has to take place, that what all the activities a person is doing, and you should hold such person responsible as well, which is called as accountability for their actions, and the remedial action should be taken, right. So you can have a variety of defense mechanisms in place, which may include the internal controls and the monitoring activity, or password based login procedures and whatnot. So these are the two things, that once your system is compromised, how to deal with it, and how to make sure that the information that is passing through the networks is secured. I hope this is clear, and from the next lecture we will be talking about the cryptographic algorithms.